Hello everyone, Emma Power here, back with a new video. In today's one, we're going to be going over the card translations for Paradigm Trigger, which along with Incardescent and Arcana, will form our main set Silver Tempest next month. So, got a lot to get through, so just going to get straight into it. There is a oddish line into Blossom, and although the artwork is fantastic, Blossom is sadly vanilla bulk, unfortunately. Waited so long to see it in the Blossom cards since the set Ancient Origins, but 120 HP and Flower Spin doing 80 damage. Flip 3 coins does 80 damage for each head, sorry. Then you can switch his Pokemon with one you benched. Very bad, unfortunately. Just not really doing enough in this day and age. 128 points is pretty shocking, so yep, unfortunately pretty bad. Maybe okay, I guess, in GLC if you're a Blossom fan, but yeah, that's probably the only way this card will ever see a lot of play, so yeah, super unfortunate. There is a Tangrowth line. Tangela holding what appears to be a raspberry, actually, so got that going for it. Also some cool artwork, but yeah, looks pretty bulk. Then there's an Ariados line, has a really interesting ability, String of Shade. It says, as long as this Pokemon is in play, the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon V-Star cost 1 colorless more, which will include V-Star powers that are attacks. So super interesting ability. Can easily think of a couple of situations where this would be extremely annoying. Like just thinking about Palkia, for example, that would need 2 energy typically, now needs 3, which is like a major hindrance. Stuff like Dialga V-Star that needs like 5 energy anyway to use its main attack. So yeah, I could see this being very annoying. It's obviously just a very good inclusion in the Zork deck as well, which always seems to be getting buffs nowadays. So yeah, I'm honestly a big fan of this Ariados. I think it could be really good. So then we have Virizion, that's part of the Swords of Justice kind of quad stuff. As the attack 4 is 1, it does 20 damage, and then if you have Cobalion, Tracheon, and Keldon out on your bench, it does 90 damage effectively. So going second, pretty good move. Just knock out a Comfey and a Sobble, I guess, or an evolution Pokemon if your opponent's had a turn beforehand to evolve. So it's okay. It's an okay move. Spoiler alert for the other guys in case you haven't seen them. Keldeo is the best one, I think, out of all of them. Keldeo would be like your main attacker, I guess. So having Virizion is just an option going second to knock out a Comfey and take an early prize card is, yeah, it's pretty good. So look forward to seeing this as like a cute little budget deck, I guess, but shouldn't be anything more than that, I would have thought. Chestnut V has 238 points, so we're kind of like looking at a more of a tanking build with maybe Capes of Toughness or Choice Belt to potentially buff the damage because, 130, healing 30 is pretty abysmal, sadly. But yeah, Spiky Striker says as long as Chestnut is in play, whenever your active Chestnut is damaged, it takes 3 damage counters. So if you have 4 Chestnut in play, your opponent will take 120 damage effectively when they attack a Chestnut. So yeah, super funny kind of meme. Yeah, I don't see it being particularly great because of like Path to the Beacon stuff, but yeah, it could be a lot of fun to try out. Ponyata evolving into Rapidash. Rapidash has a super cool ability, Heat Boost. It says once your turn, you may discard a fire energy card from your hand. If you do, until the end of your turn, attacks of your fire Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. So, very reminiscent of the Volcano EX from Steam Siege, along with Victini with this first attack, Assist Flame, it does 20 damage, taps up 2 fire energy. That's also from Steam Siege. There was a Steam Siege Volcano with that attack as well. So, very Steam Siege-esque, you could say. But yeah, Heat Boost is a super interesting card. It's like a big buff to stuff like Volcarona V that naturally wants energy in the discard pile. And seeing as Volcanian's already a combo with Volcarona and Expanded, I would expect to see, synergy with this in Standard. On top of that, I would say this is also, like, yet again, a good partner for Zoroark because it's just an easy way to cheat out, Rapidash into play. So, yeah, seems pretty good. Victini, a little bit underwhelming, but both these guys in GLC could be pretty cool. So I like the idea of this Victini in GLC at least being able to accelerate energy. We also have a Larvesta, which is absolutely adorable. Just chilling in the fireplace. It's very cute. But yeah, Volcarona, and I said Volcarona V again. Volcarona, Will-O-Wisp, 40 damage, and then Volcanic Heat, it does 120, and then it can't attack. So 120, we do have to admit, can become 150 with Rapidash, and then Choice Belt could take you up to 180. So we do have to bear in mind these sort of things now that we have Rapidash. So yeah, honestly, not too bad. Probably one of the better bulk Volcaronas at least. So if you're absolutely obsessed with this Pokemon. I will admit, like, this is a very cool evolution line. Then this is probably one of the best ways to play it. Then there is a Incineral line. So GLC fire types are reading very well today, but Incineral has the secret attack that allows you to choose one of your previous evolution's attacks, so you can copy either Reprisal or Gritty Claws. So Gritty Claws does 40 damage, and then if Incineral would have full HP and would be knocked out, its HP instead becomes 10 HP remaining. So it takes 160 damage, but its HP goes down to 10. And then the following turn, you could copy Reprisal that does 20 damage for each damage counter on Incineral. So yeah, seems like a fun gimmicky deck to try out, really. It seems like a lot of fun. I wouldn't say it's very competitive, but being able to buy yourself an extra turn just so you can set up the next Incineroar, and it is kind of like needing an extra turn, because if you skip Torracat with Rare Candy, then you can copy Gritty Claws, so you have to only copy Reprisal effectively, or use Flare Shot, which isn't very good. So yeah, seems okay. Seems like a fun gimmick deck at the very least. Then Omnistar V has the attack Ancient Guidance that says, search your deck for up to 2 cards that evolve from item cards with Fossil in their name and put them onto your bench. So it's just a way to like cheat out Fossil Pokemon, which is something that I think we've sorely needed in the TCG for a while now. So I haven't seen anything like this since the research lab. So kind of happy this came around. Obviously just being able to cheat out Fossil is pretty cool. There is an Anorith that we'll go over later on that once for its attack, can discard an unidentified Fossil to do more damage. So effectively being able to cheat out Anoriths onto the bench and then discard the fossils that way, yeah, seems pretty cool. So the second attack is like okay. Defending evolution Pokemon can attack, but yeah, you can probably like switch around that and stuff. So yeah, but other than that, seems like a pretty cool fossil support card and nice to see. So Snorunt is very cute as always. Galeli has the attack Big Mouth that does 130 damage, and then if you play to Candace, who's Candace, from your hand during this turn, this attack does 130 more damage. So Candace allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and take any amount of water Pokemon or water energy you find there. So in these kind of like high energy counts, wishy-washy Frostmoth style decks, this will fit right in, because Candace will not only find your energy for Frostmoth, but it'll also potentially find your Galelis or Frostmoths. So then you can just follow it up for the 260. I wouldn't recommend building a deck around this, because there is some terms you probably want to use Nessa to recover your Pokemon and energy. So you'll have to pair it with something else like Wishy-Washy that's more low maintenance. But yeah, Big Mouth doesn't seem so bad. Doing 260, honestly, is nothing to sniff at, especially with a choice spell. You're doing 290, you knock out the V-Stars, so, or Halucha can take you even higher, so something to bear in mind, I guess. But yeah, Galeli Frostmoth could be something. And then the Frostlast, with Frost Gel does 20 damage, and then if you play to Candace, does 90 more, and your opponent's active is now paralyzed. So pretty nifty effect. One thing I will say about this is it seems fairly underwhelming, but there is actually a couple of stage 1 water types in a Zoroark box deck, such as like Gyarados, Floatzel, and Seaking, that are all very like highly disruptive stage 1 water types, and this one would fit right in. It also has 90 HP, which is really handy to grab, so yeah, I could see this being pretty good in that kind of deck. Then we have a Relincanth to shuffle 4 in any combination of unidentified fossil and rare fossil. So again, this seems like support for the Anorith that discard a fossil from your hand to do more damage. So I guess this is an option in the late game, but essentially my main problem with this card is obviously like if you attacked with an Anorith, they knock it out, you use Relincanth, they're going to knock out Relincanth. So they're going to take like 2 prizes by the time you get another attack off. So yeah, these kind of effects aren't particularly great. Also, just bearing something in mind for GLC, I wouldn't recommend these cards particularly, but Relincanth could be a nice option to get back an identified fossil if you are playing, for example, the Dracovish in a water GLC deck. So Keldeo is like, I would say, the main attraction of the Swords of Justice, really. For water, 2 colors, does 50 damage, but if you have all the dudes out on the bench, it does 220 instead, which is very admirable for a single price Pokemon. So 220 is, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, if you get this up and running, you could potentially knock out Evolving V. So yeah, seems very powerful. Unfortunately, it is the attack cost that really lets this guy down. So you will need, Twin Energy or Double Turbo, which will hurt your damage output. You'll also need to run stuff like Raihan probably, because Turbo Patch is unreliant. So yeah, I'm not so sure about this one, to be honest, but the Cobalion at the very least can accelerate energy, and the Virizion can get you a low maintenance early KO, which is nice, and then Terrakion is kind of like, really is the odd fish, I guess. I don't know why that was the best analogy there, but yeah, Terrakion's like the odd one out because Terrakion just, yeah, is more equipped to power up than the rest of them, so unfortunately he's not really going to be helping this combo out, but 4 is 1 should be an okay budget deck if nothing else, so yeah. Then Pikachu has the attack Pika Strike that does 20 damage, and then it actually does 200 damage if your Dedenne use Dedenne Short. But before you get your hopes up, essentially they've kind of like forced this deck upon us that relies on you using Tojimadaru's first attack, which then powers up Dedenne, because Dedenne has to use the attack after Tojimadaru. So only once you've used Tojimadaru's, then Dedenne's, then finally can you use Pikachu's or Morpeko's. And Morpeko's isn't much better. In fact, it only does 60 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon, which sounds pretty cool, but it's really not worth it when you've had to waste like 3 turns just to get there. So yeah, bit of a joke, sadly, but it's a cute joke, but you know, it's yeah, it's pretty bad. The Raichu, however, is yet another Zoroark partner, because Ambushing Spark is very splashable in that deck. For a single Colorless Energy, does 40 damage, and if your opponent's Pokemon has used a V-Star power, it does 100 more, so you do 140 if they used a V-Star power. Very convenient. I wonder what water Pokemon with weakness lightning that we would possibly want to target down with this attack. Yep, Palkia, so Zoroark into Raichu after they've used their V-Star power potentially. You may be thinking, well, they can probably just avoid using their V-Star power, but if you're playing like Disruption, like Crushing Hammers, Ariados, that kind of thing, to force them to use their energy resources earlier on, if they've had to use their V-Star power, and you've been able to hide Raichu, maybe it's not an open deck list, then you can start using this attack and just start tearing through Palkias, essentially, so it seems very powerful. It's also just a nice option against any V-Star deck as well, because 140 is just consistent to it KOs against V-Stars. So yeah, big fan of this Raichu. I think we'll see a lot of play in the Zoroark deck, so nice to see. Then we have one of the better Stage 2 lines from the set, a Luxray line, though I think we've seen so many Luxrays during the Sword and Shield era. I think far too many, but either way, Luxio has the attack Spark Shot that does 90 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon with a Pokemon Tool card attached to it, so here to capitalize on all the annoying like Comfeys and stuff with air balloons attached to it. Also a very strong card in GLC because tool cards are like very important, stuff like Big Charm is, so yeah, really strong attack, very splashable in Zoroark, so yeah, I really like this one. Spark Shark, 90 damage. It's just a nice threat at the very least, and because it's splashable, you know, it's not something you rely on, but it's something that, you know, exists, and it's helpful there. So yeah, I do like Luxio in that sense. Luxray is another really good one. For just standard in general, like not even just GLC, Explosive Power reads if his Pokemon is in your hand when you swing up to play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon, so very powerful effect. So essentially, we have to now look at this as a basic that has 160 HP and has the attack Seeking Fangs, that for a colorless does 50 damage, and then we search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So very reminiscent of Talonflame from, again, Steam Siege, so have some references to those sets. But Seeking Fangs, very powerful attack. Just being able to search up to 2 trainers is pretty powerful effect, so yeah, I'm honestly on board with this. It's a free retreat pivot as well, so 160 HP. Yeah, could definitely see myself playing a lot of these, especially into a format next, I think it's January, February, we should see the first Scarlet and Violet cards. And as we're assuming, Marnie will rotate, so you know, your opponent can't just use a Marnie going second and force you to lose those trainer cards that you find. But yeah, 50 damage, chip damage, quite nice. So yeah, big fan of this Luxray. Stonefisk is one of the many memes in this set that has this attack, Mysterious Bolt. It says, you can only use this attack if you have no supporters in your discard pile, which is a trend that we're going to see quite a lot in this video. But it does 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, so it's okay. It's okay. It's definitely not my first choice, even in these like no supporter decks that we'll see. I think this will be like the one that doesn't see the most play, but yeah, 100 damage is okay. If it did 110, it would be ideal because then it could knock out a Cramorant, but yeah, it seems okay. Heloisk is looking like he was ripped straight out of a Lion King, but Wild Bolt only doing 150 is not very good. Zeraora looks like he was ripped straight out of the Buzzgorb Shrine era. 110 hit points, free retreat is a nice pivot. Battle Claw does 30 damage, and then he Prance active as an evolution, does 30 more. So there is a decent amount of modifiers, funny enough. There is the Regieleki VMAX that says basic lightning Pokemon do 30 more damage. And then there, of course, there's like Choice Belt, Pokemon Go Zapdos. So this can actually climb pretty quickly, so it is definitely worth considering as a single prize option in any of these like Regibox decks that could pop up, I guess. So yeah, I kind of like it in that sense. It's nothing too crazy, definitely good in GLC, of course, but yeah, it seems okay. Then Regieleki V has some rather interesting store potential. Like I usually glance over the evolving Vs because they're not really, they're there to just be cannon fodder to the VMAX that they evolve to, or the V Star. But yeah, Regieleki V has the attack switch bolt, it does 30 damage, and then you switch his Pokemon when you bench Pokemon, and then Lightning Wall does 100, and then it takes 100 less during your next turn. So what I really like about this is that you can essentially switch into something like a Miltank or a Diancie with Switch Bolt, and then whatever they use to knock out Miltank, maybe it's like a tech card or something, you just come in there with Lightning Wall, and then you can knock out the tech card, and you can take 100 less damage as well. So, and with God of War, you can take 120 less damage. And if like a QTE is in play because you, for some reason, have a water or a fighting energy, you can take an additional minus 20. So, I do think there's some kind of like stallish kind of potential with Regieleki V. So, yeah, seems okay. You can even use Regieleki V Max to buff this damage, which is cool. And there's also like a world where you maybe put a memory capsule on Regieleki VMAX to copy Lightning Wall. So essentially you're a 310 HP VMAX that takes 100 less damage from attacks, which sounds very appealing to me. So yeah, seems pretty good. Regieleki VMAX unfortunately has the most underwhelming attack, I think, of all of the Regieleki VMAX stuff. That makes any sense, but Transistor is a very powerful ability. Your basic lightning Pokemon are going to be doing 30 more damage, so that Zeraora we mentioned earlier, the Vikavolt V, it's a massive one that comes to mind. That could be very scary, just item locking the opponent. There's also the whole option to use, what is it called? The Raikou V, that's the one I need. So Raikou V, you're doing like 10, 20 damage and then 20 more for each benched Pokemon in play. So this is essentially acting as a plus 50 just for sitting on the bench. There's also like the Poncho Cape, I think, supposed to be coming out in the set that says when it's attached to a Pokemon V, then they can't be affected by the effects of supporters, i.e. gusted up. So it even has free retreat, so it's a pivot. So yeah, honestly, really like the idea of this in Rogue decks. Seems pretty fun. Then there's Unknown V with a really cool attack victory symbol. The 3 colors, so it's splashable if you have Raihan, Double Turbo, and Twin in your deck. It says you can only use this card, only use this attack rather if you have 1 prize left, but if you do, you win the game. You just win the game. So yeah, very splashable in those kind of like Raihan Double Turbo decks. Something like an Arceus, maybe if it needs to take 5 prize cards, or it has like an Orchid prize map versus something like a Duraludon, for example, an Arceus deck. Maybe they take 5 prizes by knocking out an Arceus V Star, then a Duraludon. This essentially says they don't actually have to go through another V Max or something. They just take a prize card. So yeah, seems pretty cool. Also in something like Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, where you have, well, you need essentially a ton of energy to even knock anything out with Shadow Rider. But then this only takes 3 energy. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this card, honestly. I think it could be pretty cool. Unknown V Stars, unfortunately, straight back to the memes. Tri-Power for 3 coins does 70 damage for each heads. Yeah, I think you could do something like really silly with this card where you have some Crushing Hammers, some Ariados, maybe some Disruption, some healing. And even then you only have 250 HP. We'll not go into that. You could do something really silly with this card. Even Star Cipher means that as long as you flip 2 heads, potentially you can do 280 for weakness damage. So there's potential, I guess, with Gloom with Tangle to do some funny memes. So yeah, could be fun in that regard. Then Meditite is going to be protected on the bench, which is nice to have in general. Medicham has a cool ability and attack. Open Chakra says if you have exactly 4 cards in your hands, Pokemon's attack cost is 3 colors less. and then Eager Kick does 80, and then if your opponent has a VMAX in play, it does 170. So in these kind of decks like Zorok, Hisuian, Arcanine, for example, that can naturally thin their hand down, they can make use of Open Chakra. And then, of course, Arcanine needs modifiers, be it Grant or Choice Spell, to even to it KO something like a Kyurem or a Duraludon. Well, this gives you a nice answer. It also gives you one KO option versus Urshifu as well. So, yeah, seems pretty cool. It's a bit more awkward to use than the Mightyena. Mightyena just has to mean they're in play. But, yeah, I do like this card. I think it's pretty cool. So, yeah, should be something for Zorok decks. Then we have the Sigilif with the attack warning that says search your deck for basic Pokemon, but if your opponent's active as a V, you can search your deck for 5 basic Pokemon. So very, very powerful setup move. I mean, we just talked about a Chestnut earlier that wants to have loads of Chestnuts in play. You know, think of the Keldeo deck that wants to have loads of basics in play. I think there's a ton of options for this card. It's super unique and cool. I kind of wish this text had been changed to if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon with a rule box, because as we'll see in the coming months, Vs should sort of be phased out almost in favor of EXs. So I'm not sure if obviously that's going to be the case. Maybe EXs turn out to be trash and people stick with V-Stars, but you know, I do think this is a cool attack though, regardless. You know, I do think this is cool. I just kind of wish it was worded a bit different, but yeah. I mean, something like Shadow Rider. I know we mentioned Shadow Rider a few times already, but I mean, Shadow Rider wants to have, 4 Vs on the bench, so something like this would definitely help you out, and you can find it with Fog Crystal, so easy to pull off turn 1 going second. So yeah, seems pretty cool. All of you wanting the Reniclus line to return to the DCG, I've got some disappointing news. This card is terrible, unfortunately. 120 HP is abysmally low, and then Persistent Cells says if his Pokemon is knocked out by damage from attack, you put it back into your hand, which is very helpful for recycling cards in a stage 2 deck. However, you discard all cards attached to it, so there's no chance of any kind of consistent loot with these guys, because you have to discard the Twin Energy or the Double Turbo. You're only doing 60, and then you have to choose 2, and you do 3 damage counters. If this was like 60 and then 60, maybe 60 is too much, but just a bit more damage, I could get behind it. But yeah, you're really not doing enough damage. Maybe in GLC it's enough, something like GLC would be good for maybe not those guys, but this guy could be okay in GLC. But yeah, seems okay. Well, not okay, but it's a shame more than anything. It is a shame. Alahim is very pretty. I do love the moon artwork in Alahim. Beheem has, again, some more trippy artwork, but Psy Arrow for 2 colors. Again, stage 1 Zork deck attacker kind of thing. Does 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and you do apply weakness and resistance, even for benched Pokemon, which is super cool. So, be able to do additional damage to Psychic Weak Pokemon. It's pretty cool. Just something nice to have in Zork, because I feel Zork always wants to have these easy prize options where it just wants turns where it takes a prize card. It doesn't matter what prize card, just as long as it takes a prize card. So being able to just snipe a Sobble or something, yeah, I like it. Dedenne is... when will these never end? This is another one of the Jokers. I think this one has to... yeah, this one has to follow Togedemaru, so you can only use this attack if Togedemaru used Toga Dash. It does 60 damage with pay, and then defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Togedemaru can, on a coin flip, deny a prize card, which is cool. And then we've looked at Pikachu, and then the Morpeko does the damage spread, so it'll be silly, but it should be pretty difficult to try and even win a game with these guys. It should be pretty difficult, so we'll have to see how it goes. Hisuian Arcanine V, 238 points. I think this V is like the definition of an okay V. It's like, it's nothing broken, but it's nothing terrible either. Irresistible Force, bit of a strange name. But as often as you like during a turn, you may move a Fighting Energy card from one of your Pokemon to this Pokemon. And then Rock Bullet does 90, and then it does 220 if it has 4 Fighting Energy attached to it, because it's doing more damage for each Fighting Energy on Arcanine. So obviously there's stuff like Surfetched V that does something similar that I think might just be better, to be honest. There is a Zapdos that puts energy on itself. Honestly, I'm a little bit tired of these kind of effects. I would like to see a bit more variety and interaction with different elements of the game, not just, moving energy around, because this is only so good for the amount of energy that's already in play, or if you're accelerating energy. But speaking of accelerating energy, There's actually a Claydol in this set that has the ability Mysterious Charge. It says, once your turn, if you have no supporter cards in your discard pile, you may attach your fighting energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So we can use Claydol to accelerate energy to just anyone, really. I mean, it's cool that it's not even to the benched specifically. It can go to the active, so that's really nice. It just means that we don't necessarily need to pivot out and play with an air balloon. We can just promote something for turn and then Claydol to it. So I do like that aspect. Spoiler alert, there's also like a bunch of upcoming cards that kind of like have awkward attack costs and need fighting energy. So keep an eye out for them when we go over them, because Mystery Charge could in theory help them out. However, you will need no supporters in your discard pile. So yeah, should be okay. Then there's Anorith that does 30 damage for 2 colors, and then you may discard an unidentified fossil card from your hand. If you do, this attack does 150 damage instead. I think we've gone over this card several times already, but either way, I think it's okay. With a choice spell, you can do 180, so that's pretty cool. I'll try not to mention Zoroark and just come up with something different. But yeah, there is the Omastar V that can search your deck for 2 of these guys and put them onto the bench, and then you have, I guess, 4 fossils to use, I guess, for attacking. But it's okay. It's fine. It is what it is. Armaldo with Reaper Claw for colors says, if your opponent's active Pokemon has 100 HP or less remaining, it is knocked out. I've kind of become not really obsessed, but very invested in the idea of using this new tool card that says your opponent's Pokemon V, essentially, all their HP goes down to 100, which is super convenient for this card. And that tool card can only be attached to Pokemon V, unfortunately. So what you could do is put that card on the Omnistar V, and then use Omnistar to search for 2 Anoriths, and then use the V-Star power the following turn to narrow down all your opponent's V down to 100 HP, and then Armaldo can come in there and clean up, or you can use Anorith to clean up. So yeah, I kind of like that idea, to be honest. Could be pretty fun. Terrakion has 2 fighting 1 colors, so that's kind of like why I was saying he was the odd one out of the Keldeo deck, really, because its attack cost is so annoying. It does 130, and it essentially gets immunity for a turn, which is cool. But you can't use back-to-back Cavern Tackles, so you have to use this in combination of some kind of Claydol box, I guess, with a couple of other attackers. But yeah, it doesn't seem too bad. There's also the option to use this in something like GLC or in a Lost Zone deck, because it is kind of like, it's got that nice synergy and is doing a lot of damage, so at least for GLC standards. So yeah, something to bear in mind. Pancham is adorable, but is evolving into a stage 1 dark type, so we don't need to worry about that. Rockruff has Invite Out, that's fine. Then Lycanroc, super interesting stage 1. Nice to see, Night Form Lycanroc back in the game. 240 damage for fighting colors, and it does 80 less for each energy. So we've talked a lot about energy disruption in the set already, but 240. So if they have 1 energy, you're going to be doing 160, and if they have 2 energy, you're going to be doing 80 damage. So very bad if your opponent has any energy attached to them. But either way, something like this in GLC, or even maybe in standard with, Raihan or the Claydol, or, Lucario energy switch, because it just needs 2 energy. Stuff like the new Ariados even, that says your opponent's V-Star powers cost 1 more energy to attack. So you could essentially use stuff like, maybe not Seeking, but Crushing Hammer and things to discard energy, and then come in there with Midnight Fang and do a whole ton of damage. And again, Zoroark partner potentially. So yeah, I kind of like this card. Seems like a lot of fun. Stonejourner, the memes never end with this set. The memes never end. Mysterious Press does 60 damage, and if you don't have any support in his disco pile, it does 130 more. So 190. Very respectable. It's not quite the 220 that Keldeo was boosting. Like, Keldeo is amazing in the sense that it can knock out evolving Vs as well. This only doing 190 is a bit of a shame, but it's still a lot of damage, admittedly, and it does mean that if this is like your main attacker, I guess, in the Claydol deck, you run like 3 or 4 of these. Maybe you run Lycanroc as well, but you're kind of like focusing on Terrakion and Claydol, not the fossil guys. Claydol, yeah. So Claydol, Terrakion, and Stonejourner, I guess, is the kind of deck they want you to play. And I guess maybe the Stonefisk as well, but Stonefisk is pretty meh, so yeah, wouldn't be so reliant on that guy. But yeah, Skuntank V does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. If they're retreated, it does 120 instead. Not particularly great, to be honest. Not really seeing all the merits in here. Proleon is chilling with what looks to be a cup of coffee, which is super cute. Was that a... Oh, I thought it was wool armor for a second, but I think it's just the way it's been textured. Yeah, seems like vanilla bulk. Yeah, vanilla bulk. Alright, so this is all vanilla bulk. Skrelp is... Alright, that's really cool. So it's like got trippy kelp artwork. That's kind of nice. Dragalage has rocket poison that does poison, but if it evolved up, that turn, it does 8 damage counters of poison. So we do have the Sword and Shield, Toxicroak, Radiant Sneasler, but these poison decks usually flop because you're just not really doing enough damage, and I think that will be the case with this Dragalage. In GLC, though, there's a lot of dog types that do poison stuff. There's the Quillfish, there's the Stewing Quillfish, there's Radiant, well, not Radiant Sneasler in GLC, but the Glaring Weezing, I should say, really. So, yeah, maybe in GLC this is like an annoying tech card that you can play. So, something to bear in mind. Oh my god, we're still not done with this lot. We have Pico Bomber from our Pico. So we have to use Dedenne and then use Togedemaru the previous turn, and it does 60 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Cool, I guess, but it doesn't even do any damage to the opponent's active, so you spent like 3 turns doing chip damage to one Pokemon while doing damage to their benched. Yeah, really bad. Galarian Berserker is bulk, I believe. Yep. The Larian line is bulk, got some silly discarding, but for 4 energy, you're not going to be doing much of that. Aggron is like very much a GLC metal guy. Counter press 90 damage. If it's damaged, then you do that much damage back to them. So very strong in something like GLC where you can just sit there like healing off the damage they do to you while doing a lot of damage in return for 3 energy. So could definitely see this card seeing a lot of play in GLC. Gabalion has Code of Justice. Attacks of your basic Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Dark. So if there is any like cool Dark decks in the future and you need a modifier, then I guess Gabalion is your guy. But back up, 30 damage, choose 2 of your bench Pokemon, for each of them search your deck for basic energy. Just a nice option to have in GLC again, as well as the Keldeo deck. So being able to find 2 water energy, tap into your Keldeos. You know, it will cost you one of your double turbos or your twins, but yeah, it might be worth it. So yeah, cool card. Togedemaru, I think we're finally done with this, guys. With these guys, I should say. This is like the first one you have to use as well. Flip a coin if heads. If this Pokemon is knocked out during your opponent's next turn, they can't take any prizes. It's a complete joke, but yeah, it should be funny at the very least. Should be funny. We have Dragonite, which is very much a GLC card, but funny enough, the Regidrago in the set can copy the attack of any Dragon Pokemon in your discard pile. So it will be able to copy Energy Hurricane for just 3 energy. So you'll be able to do that and do 180 and then accelerate 3 energy to your next Regidrago. So yeah, I do like the Dragonite in that sense. We also have yet another Stage 1 Zoroark partner in the form of Noivern. Has the attack Radiant Hunt. Choose one of your opponent's Radiant Pokemon. Spoiler alert, they can only have one in their deck. That Pokemon is knocked out. So like I said earlier with the Behemoth, just being able to get a nice guaranteed price card with Zoroark is what the deck really wants a lot of the time. So I do like this option. So yeah, seems good. Just be able to remove a Greninja or Radiant Zard. Maybe you have a Lost City in play as well. And then you essentially send their Radiant Pokemon to the Lost Zone. So yeah, kind of like it. Zygarde for Grass Energy is going to do 20 damage. And then attach a basic energy card from discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. A little bit of chip damage is nice. I could see this seeing playing in GLC because you can find it with Level Ball, but nothing beyond that because Regidrago V really has its own way of accelerating energy in the form of Heavenly Scream. It says discard 3 cards top of your deck and you attach any energy you want from there to this Pokemon. So as long as you can Oranguru at least 1 energy, you know, as long as you can get that 1 energy acceleration, you don't have to worry about acceleration for the rest of the game because of Dragonite's attack. So that's kind of like the main appeal of that one. And then Regidrago V-Star, being able to copy an attack. There's like a lot of different attacks you could choose from. Drillodon does 220 and goes through walls. Dragonite does 180 and searches for 3 energy. And then there's the Gudra that does 200 and you take 80 less. There's a Flapple that does 50 for each ability your opponent has in play. An Appleton that does 70 for each special energy your opponent has in play, funnily enough, which could be really powerful. There's the there's another one. What's it? Garchomp, I think it is. That does like 220 snipe to one of your opponent's benched Evolving V, which sounds absolutely ridiculous because you know, if you just take two 4 prize cards with this guy, then you don't really mind if your opponent just promotes whatever they want, because you can then just snipe their benched Pokemon V that they need to evolve to. So yeah, very powerful card. Legacy Star says once to your turn, you may discard 7 cards from the top of your deck, and then you choose any 2 cards from your discard pile, not just from the 7, just any 2, and put them into your hand. So yeah, I could definitely see this card seeing a lot of play. Seems very powerful, and yeah, very powerful card. Then Taurus does Adrenaline Tackle for 180 for 3. Has no damage counters on it. The attack fails. Sadly, I think the Snorlax from Lost Origin is just strictly better in most ways. Lugia V with Wind Reading. Discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw 3. Just nice, really. Just a nice option. Especially if you're going second as well, because Lugia's V-Star Power, Assemble Star, will allow you to put 2 colors Pokemon from your discard pile without a Robux onto your bench. So what we can do is use Wind Reading to discard a Archeops, and then we can use the ability Assemble Star to put 2 Archeops potentially from our discard pile onto our bench. And then Archeops finally says, once in your turn, you may search your deck for 2 special energy cards and attach them to any Pokemon. So you can use this to find like powerful color synergy, and as long as you get at least 2 powerful colors, this thing will do 260, which is very strong because with a choice spell, that's 290. So, and obviously if you're playing 4 powerful colors, you can split them up between 2 different Lugias and get 2 Lugias off and going, and start getting these very easy actually one-hit KOs. So yeah, as long as you can get the Archeops in the discard pile, seems pretty strong, and I'm a big fan of this card. But yeah, Assyrian Bravery is a stage 1 Zork partner that has the attack Eerie Cry for no energy. Put 3 damage counters on each opponent's Pokemon that has any damage on. Pretty bad, to be honest. Seems pretty bad. Gumshoes evolves from Hateful Sore Loser who lost the election. Okay. Water Pokemon Master, getting a bit political here, are we? But yeah, I know what they're doing with the hair. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. I know what they're doing. But yeah, Stakeout Head for 2 colors does 3D damage. Your opponent's active. Moved from the bench to the active spot during your opponent's last turn. This tag does 120 more. 150 is just pretty bad, especially relying on them switching. And he looks so proud of himself as well. But yeah, this attack is a catastrophe. And made a joke there, but yeah, it's pretty bad. Oranguru has the Monkey Shoe. Choose a support card from your opponent's discard pile and use it as the effect of this card. Maybe something in control so you can copy Marnie and spam it, but yeah, doesn't seem particularly great, but could be a nice option. Quadstone, if you use one of these, you heal 10, but if you use all 4, so you have to use all 4, which is pretty grim. If you use all 4, though, you heal all damage from each of your Pokemon. Oh, right, okay, that's a bit scary. So if you're playing like one of these extremely tanky pivot-based decks, like the Reggie Lecky VMAX even, where you're switching around with your boys a lot, or maybe, you're playing a Mewtwo V-Union and you can find out all the pieces quickly, this could be pretty nasty, honestly. Like, healing all damage from all of your Pokemon with needing 4 of these. Like, obviously, you will never use Silene to retrieve these pieces, but yeah, honestly, it seems like very powerful. I'll be like very worried if someone was able to make this work consistently. I know a lot of people think this card's very bad, but if you can get all 4 pieces out, this is scary. Unidentified Fossil is a direct reprint of its previous Unidentified Fossils, I guess. Then we have these cool V-Star power tools that can be attached to Pokemon V to give them an optional V-Star power, effectively. So Star Gravity, very reminiscent of the Radon, I guess, from Elden Ring, if you will. But Star Gravity, put damage counters on all your opponent's Pokemon V until they have 100 HP or less remaining. There's like a lot of VMAX decks that kind of want to reduce your opponent's Pokemon to lower HP. So stuff like Shadow Rider, for example, does like want to have to work less to get its KOs. So something like Shadow Rider could really appreciate this. We did mention the Armaldo Omastar combo earlier as well, so that's an option. So yeah, big fan of this one, honestly. It could be pretty cool. The only problem is it has to contend with arguably the best card in the set, and that is Forest Seal Stone. This card's mad. It says, once during your turn, you may search your deck for any one card. It is half a Starbirth, but it's still search your deck for any one card. It's essentially computer search without the downside. It will take up your V-Star power, so if this is in, like, you can still play this in a single prize deck, you just need to put it on like a Crobat V or Luminion and use it. So yeah, honestly a big fan of this card. I think it'll see a ton of play. Any decks that need a V-Star power that don't really want to commit 3 energy, e.g. Eternatus VMAX, for example, could make use of this. So yeah, I want to see a big fan of this. I think it'll see a lot of play. Then Worker is passive, draw 3 in the Scottish Stadium. Pretty bad. Don't think it will see a ton of play. Brandon says you can play this card only if it's the last card in your hand, so aggro based. And then you draw a card for each bench Pokemon. So kind of similar to Colorus from way back in the day, but it's okay. I think it's better in the mid to late game, but the problem is in the mid to late game, you're probably not playing aggro. You're playing more reserved in resources. You're not trying to set up as much, so it's interesting. It is interesting. Like a rare candy deck, I'll be interested to know, like, could you thin out your hand so quickly in most of the early turns that you then proceed to use this card? But it's definitely an interesting supporter to keep an eye on for sure. Candace is kind of like one of these water supporters. So I feel like we've got so many in the Sword and Shield era, but yeah. Another water supporter that has to compete with Irida and Nessa, as well as Research and Marnie, so that's kind of like how stiff the competition is. But look at the top 7, can take any number of water Pokemon and water energy. It's okay. Honestly, I can see this being a one-off in these like Frostmoth box decks, but yeah, probably not anything beyond that. Lance is search your deck for 3 Dragon Pokemon. Very good synergy with the Regidrago. You can find your Regidrago V Star, your Regidrago V for next turn, and then maybe a Dragonite. So yeah, sounds pretty good. Primordial Altar is pretty bad, I think. Yeah, once in your turn, that player may look at the top card of their deck, and then they may discard it. So you can just discard an energy that you don't want. Maybe you're playing the Regidrago deck and you discard a Pokemon or something. That's cool, but I think Pokestop's just better in the vast majority of situations. And then Regenerative Energy says when you play a Pokemon from your hand to evolve this Pokemon V and is attached to, you heal 100 damage. So super niche, nothing terrible, but nothing like really great either. So could see this seeing like niche play maybe in Zoroark or something. So it doesn't seem so bad. But either way, yeah, that will do it for this video. Let me know what you think down below. It's been a super long one, but yeah, thanks for watching. It's been Power, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.